Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another Whiskey Wednesday. First Whiskey Wednesday of the season. I get to do it out here on the back porch, so you know I'm happy. And today we do have a special guest in the back. We have Jonathan Maisano from K.Luke. We are going to be talking about K.Luke tonight. Also going to be going through a tasting of Batch 8 Toasted number 2 as well. And if you have any K.Luke, hey, be sure to pour it out, enjoy some with us, and we'll have a good time. So thank you for joining us today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Well, let's get this party started. First, let's bring in Darrell. And Darrell, when did you first hear about K.Luke?
Shoot, like I gotta go back and do the math, but less than a year ago. Whenever I would say batch 4 dropped, and I could probably get that answer from Jonathan, but that's when I found out about it. People were talking about it, tasted it, was kind of blown away by that batch, and the rest is history from there. But it's definitely under a year, man, and I'm excited about this because they're doing some good stuff.
Oh yeah, I think it was a year ago for me as well. I remember exactly where it happened. It was Katie Turk texting me and saying, "Jeff, buy this," and I was like, "Okay," because when Katie texts you and says buy something, you buy it, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah,
let's bring on Kelsey here. Kelsey, same question to you.
Pretty much similar time, but I think it was for me, it was batch 3 because I tasted it at Ethan and Katie's, and I bought that batch and I was looking for 1 and 2. At that time, they were pretty much gone in Tennessee at that point. But it's interesting. This is one particular brand, number 1. We're going to talk about more of this tonight, but blending is an art. And for me, the most impressive thing about this particular brand for me is the consistency getting better and better and better as we've gone through each batch, which is extremely hard to do. I felt like their batches and blends of their whiskey have continually gotten better. And few brands that I do this with, and I'm not just blowing smoke, Jonathan, I know you can hear me, but whenever it drops, I just buy it. I don't even think about it. I just make sure that I get it on a seal box because I can't live in a state where it's not distributed, but it's always a buy. There's very, very few brands that I can trust. Consistency, getting better and better, but also just a consistent, complex whiskey. So kudos to you guys for what you do, and thank you for all the hard work because it is appreciated. And I'm looking forward to tasting through these with you tonight as well as our patrons and team that are in the chat. So cheers to you guys.
And then also going to bring up here, congratulations if you see these posts here that have been hitting Instagram. K.Luke has been winning awards at the tastings in San Francisco this week. So they got to celebrate 2 double golds for the things that we will be tasting tonight as well. So congratulations, and let's bring on our special guest here. Let's bring on Jonathan to say hi to everybody.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Jonathan Maisano, owner and blender for K.Luke Whiskey Company. Looking forward to spending the next hour or so tasting some whiskey and talking with you guys about my love and passion of K.Luke. So
there we go.
All right.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Jonathan, and thank you for sending us these samples to taste. And my batch 8 has not made it to me, so I actually got to taste this before I got my bottle. So I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Well, I think you nailed it, talking about just the consistency of the quality. That is our number one most important thing with K.Luke is Jennifer, my wife, and I, we spend a lot of time going through the blends and really trying to dial them in. Not to say that one batch is better than another, but that each batch has its own whiskey, multi-layered whiskey experience. That's really our goal in every batch. And as I create the batches, we run through blind tasting, start making adjustments. It's a long process, but I'm glad you appreciate the end result of just a complex pour and something that's different with each batch.
Yep.
But the consistency of the quality and the layers, that's our number one goal of everything we do. So,
well, you're doing it well, and I have been very, very impressed, like I said, with that. And just wish that more people could get their hands on it and experience it with me a lot of times. So tell us what states you're actually distributed in right now. I know you're on Silbox and a couple other onlines, but tell us what states you're actually distributed in.
So our home state, we live in Mississippi. We live in Ocean Springs down the Gulf Coast. So we are in Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky. We added on a couple months ago. We're also in one store in Wyoming, believe it or not, because the owner flew down to meet me about 6 months ago and said, look, I've got to have K.Luke in my shop. So long story short, he talked me into going up there to Wyoming. So we're at a store called Country Lane Liquor in Pinedale, Wyoming. So 5 states on the ground. We're getting ready to add Alabama. We'll go live there in June with the next releases just before Father's Day. And then you can also find our products on Sealbox.com and Shared Pour whenever they're in stock. Sealbox right now is completely sold out. We were able to get them a little bit more batch 8 that they'll have there probably in about a week or so, but that'll be the last of it. And then Shared Pour does have some batch 8 available right now. Both are sold out of Toast Grill batch 2 that we're going to taste tonight.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, hopefully you can add the other A state soon, Arkansas, closest to you. I know a lot of people around here, I've been sharing my bottles for a year and a half now, and everybody that tastes it, no matter what batch it is, they ask, what is this? And it's a fun experience to watch people taste it for the first time, especially people that are into bourbon and don't know the label and don't understand what it is yet. And then to watch them taste it and have that experience is a lot of fun.
Well, we appreciate you sharing the whiskey and helping spread the word. Again, I've had a really fortunate career, I started working in restaurants right when I turned 16, kind of working my way up through, busting tables and the waiting tables, and they got into fine dining, and I really fell in love with wine. And that's really what started my journey, the last 2 decades of working on my palate, finding out what I really enjoyed and honing in on that. And what brought me to where we are today with K.Luke. So
awesome. When did your wife start helping you pick and blend?
So for the last 19 years, I had a retail store in South Mississippi. We were known for barrel picks. I picked 415 single barrels the last decade or so. I guess about 8 years ago, Jennifer came with me on a barrel trip. Up to that point, she had tasted, my barrel picks, and she's like, yeah, I can appreciate them a little bit, but it was never like, hey, pour me some bourbon. We drank a lot of wine together. I said my original background was getting sommelier certified through the Quartermaster Sommeliers, and really kind of honing into my wine palate in the beginning. But so she makes the first trip to Kentucky, and I said, look, Jennifer, I'm just letting you know, we're going to Wild Turkey. We're picking out barrels of Russells, with Eddie. We're going to Beam. We're picking out Knob Creek barrels. If we're doing all the big, full flavor, all the big brands, all the big whiskeys. And she tasted every barrel right along with me. Got to go and experience, if you've never been to Kentucky, I always said, it's a magical experience there, right? And to go see the process and see the scale, especially if you can go to smaller distilleries, and then go to large. If you go somewhere like Willett, I guess they've grown a bunch now from when I first went there, but you look at that compared to somewhere like Heaven Hill or Buffalo Trace, right? And you see the scale difference and you appreciate all that goes into it. And just like I got hooked on my first barrel trip after that, she was pretty dialed into it. She has a harder time describing what she tastes, but she knows what she likes, which I tell her, look, just go through and find what you like, eliminate the whiskeys that don't stand out to you, and then just let it go from there. Go with what excites you that's in the glass, and that's how she tasted the blend. So our process is I create all the blends, I take all the notes on the barrels. Then from there, after I have 8, 10, 12 blends, her and I sit down, we taste through all the blind. We never discuss them until afterward when we go through each blend and talk about what each of us liked or disliked. And we each have equal say in the blends. It's not like my say is any more important than hers is. It's equal right down the line. And when we know we have something special is when both of us taste the blend and we're excited about it. And it's like, wow, this really has these layers we're looking for. And then that's when we know those move on to the next round. And then the ones one of us likes, not the other, I start making 1 barrel at a time adjustments to them. We rerun them. And then the final stages, with our top couple of blends, we run them blind against the best bourbons on the market, all the big name brands, all the legacy stuff, anything people are excited about. If I can get my hands on it, We try not to open it if it's a new batch or a new expression until we can run a blind against our own. And then from there, I continue making barrel adjustments one at a time until we come in to dialed in on one blend that continuously wins all of our tastings. And just what comes out of the glass is what we want to share with all the rest of you, right? Just multi-layered, a lot going on. For me, it's got to be great on the nose, nice up front, mid palate, long finish, and lots of complexity all along the way. So.
Well, definitely achieving that for sure. All of those, I can say, at least from the batches that I've tasted from 3 to 8 so far, have just been, like I said, progressively. Something I said before we started is that their blends, have progressively gotten better, and that's a very, very hard thing to do. It's not that one blend is better; it's just that consistency of the experience itself. So that's really cool.
So I think that brings a good point up, actually. So part of what I think has helped add more complexity, because again, we're non-age stated, but they're blended straight, so everything has to be at least 4 years old. Everything is sourced from Kentucky and Indiana, and then it's up to 36% rye. So we intentionally left the label a little bit vague on the details because, not that there's anything to hide, but for me, the other direction is I wanted to be able to, as new distilleries came on board in those 2 states and up to that mash bill, in anything above 4 years old, I'm looking for more flavor profile. I don't care so much about the age or even the distillery, but what I'm looking for is certain flavors, right? So there's certain distilleries I'll reach out to because there's a flavor that I hone in on from that distillery that I want to have in my wheelhouse to be able to create blends. And I think part of the complexity that you've seen growth in the batches is we started off with 4 barrels. With batch 7, we expanded to 10 barrels. So batch 7 and 8 are actually 10-barrel blends.
Okay.
What that gives us now is about a half dozen different distillery mashable combinations and blends, which, as it really gives us just a lot of different notes going on. And no one can ever taste our blends and go, "Oh, I can tell it's core, from this distillery or this distillery." So I think that's really cool about the blends and how we've achieved that, getting even more complexity of the blends have gone on.
Absolutely.
What I think is so cool about the blends that you do and some others do as well, but you're kind of creating your own footprint. And we taste that sometimes when we do the blinds. The Turks, who we were talking about earlier, gave me a blinds of just all these different blends. And I was just navigating through that thing completely blind. Like everything I was tasting, it was just like, this is just different. Like, I don't know where to pinpoint this. Like, it kind of tastes like this, but it's totally different. And I feel that when I go through your blends as well. So that's always kind of the fun process. Once again, we were talking about the art of blending and creating something new. And that's kind of that, I don't know, it's like you're combining those different paints to create a different kind of mosaic. I love it.
Yeah, I could always tell people, for me, it's like being a chef with just really well-stocked, fresh ingredients, right? Again, I don't want to raise the cattle or grow the produce. My job is to go out and find the very best places to do what they do really well, right? Create great distillate, great aged whiskey, and then from there figure out what homes into my palate. What am I looking for, right? So I'm going to create a blend. I have every barrel we even rated, so a couple hundred barrels, and I get through. I'm like, okay, well, these are fruit driven. These are more caramel toffee. These are more spice driven. Maybe these have more upfront aromatics. These might have more back end. So then I get through all my notes. I'm like, okay, I kind of know here's my end goal, right? Here's my end vision. This multi-layered whiskey. How do we get there, right? What's the roadmap? And then I pull from all these different columns, and that's where I create the blends. And I think something else that's really unique to us, and I don't know of anybody else that does it necessarily quite the same way, is we actually taste every single barrel. We rotate them out one at a time. And I've had people tell me, like, well, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, well, I don't believe in that, because I'll create blends, and I'm like, okay, I'm like 90% there, right? So maybe I'll run 4 new blends, only changing out 1 barrel. And sometimes you taste the blend in 1 barrel difference. I don't like them at all. And it's not even remotely close to the other blend that we love. And then you go the other way, you add this other barrel, and it's like, so like for me with batch 8, we were almost there, and I just couldn't get the back end where I wanted it. And we had some barrels put aside, that we're saving for a single barrel program. I had some barrels that, we kind of, so to be single barrels, we're kind of looking at double-digit age, something that really stands out. And I had these couple of barrels. I was like, you know what? Let me play around with blending some of these in here. And we came across this combination and being the final for batch 8. And I was like, there it is. There's the complexity and the richness. And Jennifer felt the same way when she tasted it. So it's really cool being able to create these blends 1 barrel at a time and rotate them out. Now, granted, it is a ton of work because we've gone to 10 barrels. it is far more time consuming and difficult for me to adjust the blends because there's so many variances now, right? And but I think that's what makes the brand special. And people ask me all the time, like, how many barrels can you go to in a blend? And to be honest, I have no idea. Like, I don't know if it'll be 12, it could be 20. Whenever I taste them and I feel that I can no longer control the quality where I want to be in each barrel in the blend, we'll stop there and that'll be how big the batches are. So I don't know what the number is yet until I get to that point. But
Nice.
I'm just not going to change what I believe in and how I blend and do every single barrel to taste. So when we hit that zone, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I was just saying, why try to fix something that's not broke, bro? I mean, it's definitely working. So you said you wanted to taste through this first, right?
Batch 8?
Yeah. Okay.
Must be you're thirsty, ready for a pour?
Absolutely.
I am.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited about it. I haven't even cracked it nor tasted it, sniffed it, nothing. So,
I drank a little of mine.
just a little bit. Let's do that.
I know some people were giving you some love. This Dave loves K.Luke. Bourbon batches 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Toasted batch 2. Man, that's like I said, man. There's so much depth and quality in these blends. So.
Yep. Yeah, and there's the Turks again. Introduced so much of us here. You got some big fans in this chat here. Yep. And then you got examples here. You know, it always starts at these bottle shares we go to. Bringing bottles around and people try them, and then it just kind of blossoms from there. It's real fun to watch it.
Oh God, has it been a year? I'm just reading Joseph's comments. Sorry,
It has been a year exactly, Darrell. It's been exactly a year since then.
Okay.
I was thinking it's been less than a year. For us, that's everything, right? When you go and you pull a bottle off your shelf, right, and there's thousands of bottles out there, right, and there's all sorts of prices and styles. So for us, we want you, every time you grab a bottle of K.Luke down from your shelf, we want you to be excited. You want to be able to share it. And I tell retailers and restaurants the same thing. I said, look, if you're going to bring K.Luke in, bring it in because you're excited and you believe in the whiskey. Obviously, I want my family to eat, but if you don't believe in it, it's not the right fit, then it doesn't need to be there. Because I want people to be truly excited and passionate and share our passion with our customers. And for me, I think it's really important, whether it's wine or whiskey, when you're making a recommendation, you want it to be a solid recommendation. You're excited and the customer sees that. And the same thing you share with your friends or family. It's very important to us that it is it's a great experience all the way around, and everyone's excited to enjoy the pour. So that's a big part of our goal of everything we do. So it is much appreciated for all of you that love what we do and appreciate all the time and hard work that goes in creating these blends.
So you mentioned the blending process and said that this was a 10-barrel blend when it comes to batch 8.
10 barrels, yeah.
Do you, when you're doing the blending and you're kind of understanding how much even volume is in each barrel, are you plotting it the whole time that you're going to use the entirety of each barrel that you're blending in there? Or do you have proportions that you're getting into? How deep into that do you get to when you're trying to decide that?
So we do blend the whole barrel. So I know based off, the age and weight. I mean, I know like, okay, I'm going to blend X milliliters of this barrel to this one to get it as close as I possibly can to the final ratio. But yeah, we blend in a 100% of the barrel. I would imagine if we tried to go with partial barrels, I think Bardstown would have their hands full of trying to keep up with that for us. Bardstown Bourbon Company does all of our bottling, and they do an incredible job for us and treat us just the same as all the big name brands that they have. So we couldn't be prouder to work with those guys.
Absolutely. It's quite the facility that they've grown in less than like 3.5 years or 4 years out there. It's crazy.
Cheers,
yeah,
man.
Cheers, Dusty.
It is really world class. I told Jennifer, I went to a couple of smaller houses, we looked at originally to do the bottling for us. And when I went and met with Bardstown, I told her, I said, it's got to be here. It's either got to be here or we can't do it. And, at the time, they were really starting to ramp up what they were doing for bottling for people. And I tell people, like, the amount of brands they bottle there is incredible.
Yeah.
And they really spent a lot of time with us. Like, I basically went in and explained the whole process. We showed me a bottle mock-up. I mean, I even had mock up with liquid and the whole thing. And then we went through what kind of screen do we want to use on filtering and making sure we had the right particles, hold the mouthfeel we wanted, and just the whole thing. We were there live for the first bottling, and it was really cool to go and to get to see that process. And they've been an incredible partner to us. They have an incredible team of talented people that have a lifetime of whiskey experience.
Oh yeah.
All right.
You guys
Why don't we
ready
get
to
into
dive
batch
part
8
two?
here?
Cheers.
Yeah, let's
Batch
do
eight.
it. Yeah,
Cheers,
cheers.
guys. I've just been nosing it so far.
One of the things that hits me right off the bat, Jonathan, is the mouthfeel difference from 7 to 8. Just coming off my brain, remembering there's such a velvety, like creaminess to this batch that I felt stood out a little bit more in this one than 7. I don't know if that was something that you found or went after, and you were talking about mouthfeel a while ago when you're talking about filters. So I wanted to check on that.
So so batch 7, we kind of dialed it back in a little bit lower in proof. It's a little bit more refined. Like for me in batch 7, I get more like some blackberry, like violet floral, a little bit of maltiness, like a little like soft kind of roasted coffee, but it's definitely a little bit more refined. Where 8, we kind of got back to like more of that like decadent caramel, like you say, kind of big mouth coating.
Yeah.
And again, for me, as I'm going through the blends, and sometimes just the way the barrels fall together, I really love the way they stand up. And again, we don't want every batch to taste the same.
Right.
For me, that wouldn't be very exciting if every one of them tastes exactly the same, because as we run wine tastings, on different days, you're in the mood for different things. So we taste in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, like after having food, after having a cigar. Like I try to taste it all different ways. We add a few drops of water in there. Because your palate, you want something different, right? Again, I think that's what makes K.Luke such an exciting brand. Is there's so much going on. Every batch is so different, and I think depending what you're in the mood for, you're going to pick out a different batch on a different day as your favorite.
Ethan is the other part of the Turks that we're talking about. He loves this Keenan Reserve, and let me tell you, the first time I tasted it with him, I was like, just go ahead and order me a bottle. Don't even have. He asked us, like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm sure. Get me a bottle of it. If he was touting it so much in regards to the finish on that thing. So that's the fun part too, like seeing where you're branching out, trying different things with a blend. And that was one that was really a lot of fun to experience and taste.
Yeah, so for anybody who's not familiar, that is the K.Luke Keenan Cabernet Reserve small batch blend that we did. So this is really a special project for us. Michael Keenan's an incredible winemaker up on Spring Mountain. The winery's been in his family almost 50 years. And I reached out to Michael, along with making incredible wine that we're a big fan of, just personally drinking and enjoying. Michael's a big fan of whiskey and cigars. And I reached out to him. I said, Michael, look, I want to do this project. I want to lay down some whiskey in your barrels. He's like, whatever you need. So we kind of went over it. We decided to do Reserve Cab, and we actually purchased, so we did half American oak, half French oak, just like the wine is aged. And it was really cool. Of course, we created the blend. And I think something else unique that I've never heard anybody else doing, when we created the blend to lay down the Keenan barrels, I actually created more like spice-driven, rich, kind of full-flavored blends because I wanted them to stand up to the wine and not get lost. To be honest, a lot of wine finishes I haven't loved. And I think a big part of it for me is I think a lot of them are proof down too low. And then I think a lot of them, the finish overtakes the whiskey.
I would agree with that.
For me, it's really important to find that beautiful balance between the two. So actually, as I created the blends, we blended Cabernet into them, let them oxidize, and then we tasted through those in our blind tastings. And that's how we picked the final blend to lay down. So we actually laid down 5 barrels of whiskey and 4 wine barrels. We tasted it 3 months and every month after that. And on this particular batch, we ended up letting it go a full year. So we thought it drank where we wanted it to be. So,
yeah.
That's even harder too, in my opinion, knowing when to pull it to where it's not setting too long or too little. That's just another added variable that you're having to learn. You were talking about your love for wine and how that affected your palate. So, I mean, I guess you kind of had a leg up for most people that are doing finishes like that, knowing the wine world and what you like, what flavors, how it interplays with the different types of barrel that wine can be barreled in. So that's awesome.
yeah, it was really cool. When I was studying wine, they used to make us go to the grocery store, like you need to smell the produce and all the spices, talk about getting some weird looks. But I always tell people, like, when you're trying to describe aroma or taste for that matter, it's all memory recall. So if you don't work on your, trying to remember, like, what did something smell or taste like? When I was studying wine, we tasted groups of about 12 people. And you would taste, and somebody, you're like, I can't quite place it. Something familiar, and somebody would be like, oh, it's this or it's this. And you're like, oh, that's exactly what I taste or smell.
Yep.
And then you just start trying to remember that over and over again. Like, I don't eat a lot of fresh fruit, but like if the kids order something with fruit, or if we get a dessert with fruit off the side, like, I always make it a point. Still now, I mean, I did it last week. I'd like to sit and taste the berries and try to focus on, like, okay, what is the exact flavor between like a raspberry and a blackberry, or blueberry, like the difference between blue fruit, black fruit, red fruit. And I just always try to focus on that when I have the opportunity, just, again, it's just something simple, like it's all as a garnish inside a plate, and like, let me taste that, and just continue to dial in that memory recall.
Yep. I do the same thing. Last year I went to, or was that 2 years ago now, went to Costa Rica, and there were just all these fruits that I just don't get to try very often. Star fruits, all these type of things. It was just like, I just went and got every single one to do the exact thing that you just described, just to run through it, get that muscle memory going again.
On that finish subject, Jonathan, is there any intentions to do another wine finished bourbon or rye or anything in the works that you can maybe talk about? Oh, did we lose him?
Already another batch is being laid down, so batch 2 is already in barrel right now.
Oh shit!
So that one's already laid down. Now that K.Luke is my sole focus, not being retail anymore, as you can imagine, I've got wine contacts all over the world, so we won't overdo it on blend. Like, I don't want to overdo it on finishes where we have like 1,000 different finishes, but you will start to see a couple more key finishes that I'm really excited about, and winemakers that I personally know, really getting to have some fun with it, do something special. We won't go quite that fruit driven with the MD 2020 there, but we'll try to keep them, just balanced and exciting. And again, I don't care about what's trendy out there. Again, what I care about is, what do I want to sit and drink at the end of the day? And, what are people that, like you and myself, that love whiskey, going to be excited about? And what do we want to sit down and pour in our glass and drink? That's our focus behind everything we do. So you'll see some more of that coming with some other finishes down the road.
What led you to high rye, low rye for your blends? I mean, what was the thinking behind that? Because that's something that I get asked a lot whenever I'm introducing it and don't really know the answer to.
So it's a great question. So I picked 49 barrels of Four Roses the last 10 or 11 years. Number one, first barrel I ever picked. My favorite bourbon, I would sell it on the market year after year. I could have gotten any bourbon out there, being in retail for 20 years. But for me, Four Roses small batch limited edition was the one bourbon that I made sure to bring home every year for a bottle for myself. And what I always loved about that bourbon, there was high rye, low rye, different. You see the inspiration for K.Luke, right? How we buy high rye, we buy low rye, different ages, all blended together in a perfect harmony. So that's a big part of my inspiration. That's why it's high rye, low rye, because I think in low rye you get more of the sweetness when the corn comes through, but you need some higher rye content to give you that spice in the back end, to really round out the mouthfeel and the finish. And I think that higher rye extends out the back end. So
nice.
That's a great question of why it's high rye, low rye.
Thanks for explaining that too. Go ahead, Jeff. What were you going to say?
So on batch 8 here, as we're experiencing this, we've gotten to
my kids would
kind of sit down and enjoy it quite a bit.
At baseball tonight.
So you mentioned you were going for something that was caramel forward. It almost comes across like a caramel brittle.
I lost
like
you a little
real
bit
dense caramel. You lost me for a little bit.
Yeah, he's frozen on Jonathan, you're frozen on our end, or on my end.
Oh, shoot. Am I frozen or is he frozen? I was worried.
He's frozen.
He's frozen on our end. Oh. Yeah, your internet seems to be dropping a bit, Jonathan.
Okay.
Well, guys, let's talk through it here as you're going through it, and we'll kind of see Jonathan's intent on the blend too, because I'm totally curious. But it's starting out with this rich caramel brittle for me, and then mid palate, the brittle kind of dissipates a little bit, and these like floral notes and these fruit notes like blossom, and then the caramel like comes up again, but those other notes just keep kind of going. It plays like this kind of like melody from mid palate to the finish, from the start to the end. It's definitely had me intrigued this entire time we've been talking.
Yeah, I think we got you back now.
Just the audio. Your audio's muted, but other than that, camera looks good.
All right.
There we go. Now we
There
go.
we go. Nice.
We were talking through your blend, and Jeff was talking about the He's talking about his caramel brittle with all these different type of fruit notes as he goes through it. I think for me, the thing that hit me right off was the mid palate for this. The mouthfeel and the mid palate of this blend sticks out to me. The difference of the rye spices and where it's hitting my mid palate on this particular blend, as well as the sweetness that Jeff was talking about up front. But I mean, it's just lighting my palate up. I love it.
Yeah, so I think for me, when I find the right balance of rye spice, I can always tell, like you said, it kind of comes in mid palate and then it carries across the front, and then it starts to like bring out more of like that the fruit profile, and it kind of offsets the sweetness, and then it keeps driving you in for more. And the next thing you know, you've had a few more pours than you plan to. Like that's when you know you have a great whiskey, when you keep tasting it, like, man, there's so much going on. I want to go back to it and try and figure it out. But then you're enjoying it so much, it's like, do I want to sit and focus on flavors, or do I want to just sit and enjoy it? And I think with our whiskey, you can do either one of those things, depending what you're in the mood for.
What about you, Darrell?
This batch 8, so it's given me a familiar vibe that I got when I had batch 7. When I first had batch 7, I was like, whoa, this kind of tastes a bit different than 4, 5, and 6 that I had. It was darker, seemed older, and I'm getting the same vibe on this. Like it's definitely rich and oaky on the nose, but on the palate for me, it lights up to being like a dark berry and like some citrus. That rye spice is potent, which I love, but it makes it seem like it's like 120 plus proof versus that 118 that it is. Like it just sits on your tongue, coats it nice, and it's just literally just tingling. Like it's nuts. But this tastes similar to 7 versus the other batches that I've had. I would have to put them up against each other, but this is really, really good.
The thing that I was going to say, the thing I liked about this particular blend on the finish is that the fruit notes come through as strong on the finish as they do on the front of your palate. So when you're finishing, you get the fruit notes up front, but then as you're cycling through the finish, all of those fruit notes come back out, which is really, really nice and fun.
Yeah, the mid is just so bright. Like on the nose, it's dark for me, rich, oaky. On the palate, it's just literally, it's like a light turned on, and it's no darkness there. Like the oak kind of isn't there, which isn't bad, but it's just lit up by like citrus and bright fruits for me. I really, really like how this is on the mid and the finish.
And I think that brings to a really good point. How do you accomplish that, right? If you just put in old whiskey, what do you get? You get a lot of like leather and oak spice. You just get that kind of heavy, sometimes it can almost be kind of funky, like old library book, right? So what you need to have some more vibrant whiskey in there. And I think that, again, having that kind of lower rye mash bill, and again, having different ages, it just brightens it up, and it gives you a much wider profile. And that's why I tell people, like, ages and everything. I taste a lot of, especially when I was picking out single barrels, I tasted a lot of 12-year-old plus whiskey that, like, I just had no interest in drinking. It just was too oaky and too much leather wood spice, and that's not something we ever want in our blends. Like you said, in batch 8, you get those notes that are in there, but it's held in check by that vibrant, bright, like you said, there's some floral and fruit. And like the more I sit and taste this, just sitting talking with you guys, the fruit just like keeps opening up more and more on the back end.
That's one thing I noticed for me that I've never had on a whiskey is for the fruit notes to return on the finish, and actually come back and enjoy those same notes, but on the finish. It's really, really intriguing and a really fun experience for sure.
I like this batch 8 quite a bit. I'm actually gushing over it. I was actually doing a little comparison here to batch 4.
So long.
I just pulled my batch 7 to do a little comparison.
Well, it's a completely different animal than batch 4. They're not even, as we were talking about earlier, these are two completely different paintings. So
yeah, I just poured a little bit of 7.
Yeah, he's comparing 7 and 8, and I'm comparing 4 and 8.
Like, because I remember them being like, well, I can't say I remember them being similar. I just remember getting similar vibes. But this, yeah, I'm really digging 8. See, 7 comes across oakier though on the nose than 8.
So how do you find that in the blend? Like you were talking earlier about writing down all your notes and taking all the barrels and their standout components and trying to find like the things that would go together or what your plan was. But when I taste this one and it takes me on a ride, like how did you find that ride? I'm really interested in like the process.
It is a lot of blind tasting. I mean, a lot of over and over. So, like for me, as I'm sitting and tasting, I'm tasting 7 now against 8 also. Like I said, 7, I kind of get a little bit more of like a little like malty roast coffee, but it's got that like kind of wet floral blackberry thing going on.
Let me pour a little bit more.
The maltiness is what comes across way more on 7 to me than 8 on the nose, especially.
See, I don't get that big citrus punch that I get on 8 for 7. Like
Agreed.
7 kind of remains consistent for me. Like it's oakier, it's darker up front, then it kind of remains similar to that on the palate, which is fine. Like I really like this one too, but I think just going back and forth, like just that citrus fruity vibe. And I'm a sucker for like not fruity whiskey, but when you have those fruit vibes, the fruit notes, sometimes even finished, that's more up my alley. In 8, excuse me, with that big citrus punch on the mid palate in the finish, I think it's just a little bit above 8 or 7. God, I'm mixing them up.
Yeah, so you like the.
Yeah, I like that citrus punch on batch 8.
So what's crazy is the distillery that gives 7 the distinct note that's in here. It's only 1 barrel blended in there. In that same distillery, I have the same 1 barrel blended in batch 8. Now there are some different other variable components that changed, other different distilleries. But I think the one distillery that really makes those notes come out in 7, in 8, like it's there, but it's like a totally different roller coaster. It's like you're going backwards and upside down, right? And rather than straight on like you do in 7.
I'll notice a big difference on the nose of 7 is almost like a burnt sugar, like a top of a caramel brulee sugar note that's in there with that maltiness of that maltiness with it is so incredible. I love that.
So we got a question here in chat, but any plans to get to Michigan anytime soon?
So, people ask me every day about coming to the market. So we would love to be everywhere, but the reality is I can blend and we can only taste so much at a time. Especially after the Fred Minnick, number 20 bourbon of the year this past year. So landing in the top 25 last year. We've had a lot of states reach out. We just can only slowly progress into them because, again, I'm not really sure what my ceiling is and how many barrels I can blend together. We have no intention of hiring for the company. It's just 2 of us. Kids are old enough. For anybody who doesn't know, so the brand name Caitlin, where the K comes from, is our daughter. So that's why it's K. And then Luke is our son, Lucas. So Caitlin turns 12 this year, and Lucas will be turning 7. So maybe at some point, if they decide to come to work for the company, we'll expand a little bit more. But we do slowly plan to roll out some more states. But for me, it's really important. Like I don't want anybody else out telling the story of the brand. Like I want to be there. I want to be there doing the introduction, meeting store owners. We pour all the whiskey ourselves at events. I'm actually driving tomorrow for an event to pour for a chamber for a couple hundred people up in Jackson, a couple hours north from me. So, like, I don't want to overdo it either. I promised Jennifer and the kids, like me getting out of retail and doing this, that I would balance out my time better of being home and spending time with them and my love of the whiskey. So it's really just trying to find that right balance. And again, tasting everything. I've come to realize we cannot roll out whiskey more than once a quarter because that's the time it takes to taste these larger blends is incredibly time consuming. And again, we don't want to cut any corners or change anything the way that we do to create these blends the same way every time. And it's also really important to me that our first, 4 or 5 markets we started with, we want to make sure we can supply them with enough whiskey as we grow moving forward. So we are trying our best against the new markets, but it's trying to find the balance, and we will never sacrifice anything with the whiskey to get bigger. So
Great. We appreciate that too. What's
So
interesting? Go ahead.
Stu, you have whiskey friends in all different states, so just let them know.
Exactly. We'll take care of you, buddy. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And a lot of us too, about us doing single barrels, we get asked all the time. The only 2 single barrels we put out so far, those 2 15 years we had, we first bottled in June 2 years ago. So for me with K.Luke, it's really about my blending ability and my understanding of the layers of whiskey. Not to say that we won't do some other single barrels. Again, you'll probably see some other double-digit age single barrels that really stand out to us being something special. But I also realized every one of those barrels we roll out as a single barrel, it takes away from something we put into a blend to add on the layers, complexity, which batch 8 was a great example of that. I think instead what you'll probably see from us is doing some single barrel releases of small batch blend or secondary barrel aged. But then as we this next we did 8 barrels filled. Maybe we'll get all that barrel variance from one barrel to another, maybe toasted barrels or other wine cask finishes. So we want to hold the K.Luke identity in the blending and what really makes it special, what sets it apart in the market. So
what about doing blend your own blend with the master blender? Can we make that happen sometime soon? I mean, that would be awesome. Not only just to see your process, but to help create a particular blend. That might be something to be fun too. I'm just throwing that out there.
Hope I think we're losing you again.
What kind of blend did you say?
I said make your own blend with the master blender.
Yeah,
instead of doing a single barrel pick, we come and make a blend with the master blender.
Yeah. We have definitely had some requests for that as well. And that's something I'd love to be able to do because I think that would really, again, be something special and really hold the identity of what makes K.Luke special with groups of people. So, yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well.
Very nice. Well, I think that's the fun part about it is learning and drinking, like you said, and learning people's palates. Let's go on to this particular beauty, the Toasted Batch 2. For those that didn't know, last year's batch was great. I'm interested to get into this one as well. Proof is 118.2. There we go, as Jeff is pointing that out.
Yeah, 1 proof point off of batch 1. Yeah, I pulled up batch 1 too, so I can maybe do a comparison as well.
Now, I didn't try batch 1, so this will be my first experience with your toasted batches here.
So to kind of give you a quick rundown, I think of kind of what makes our toasted barrel stand out. Again, talking about finishes, trying to find the right time, trying not to overdo the finish. Same thing with the toasted barrel. For us, it's just another seasoning agent to the whiskey, but we don't want this to be like all you taste is toast, and you don't taste the dark fruit, the coffee, and the spice. So I actually blend the whiskey different going into toasted barrels as well, and knowing they're going to be toasted barrel finished.
Nice.
So Kelsey always loves to ask this question, so I'm going to jump in front of him here. But he's always wants to know where you're getting your barrels, if you're allowed to disclose that.
So this is I'll tell you about the toasted barrel. So for us, we do a medium toast, and it's again, done to taste. We've kind of found 3 to 4 months is kind of the right balance of what we're looking for in the toasted barrel, because again, we don't want to overpower it. Like, I don't know if you guys had the toasted barrel rye.
Yes,
I've had a sample of the rye.
So for me, that one especially, right? I try to find more like floral citrus barrels, and I don't want that toasted barrel to overwhelm. Like, we get all the vanillins, and all you get is sweet wood sugar. Because to me, it's like, what's the point of creating a nice blend if that's all you get back end is just tons of wood notes in your face, right? So for me, it's like, yeah, that's great. It's like adding salt. It adds. You have to have it there, but we don't want to overdo it. So trying that right balance on the toasted barrel.
Let me see. I put that.
That was something that I was interested in asking you, because the I can see having like a single barrel and then putting it through the toasting process, because you're either noting the deficiencies or what you're trying to add to that particular barrel. But when you're doing that to a blend, it's got to be way more complex in my mind. And I just wonder, like, what do you know what you're trying to add to the blend with the toasting process as you go into that? Like, what's kind of the thought process with what blend gets nominated then to get toasted?
So I think for me, my mindset is, the mindset is trying to build a little bit bigger whiskey, a little bit more broad-shouldered, a little bit, more spicier, at least on the bourbon, where that toasted barrel is going to be a nice offset, but not overpower it. Because I think if the whiskey's too soft, you're going to get too much sweet notes from the toasted barrel, and you're going to lose the core whiskey.
Off the nose, this one comes off real spicy to me for something toasted.
Ooh.
Comes through really nice and strong mid palate again, but it spreads out to the outsides of the tongue, which I love the mouth coatingness of that and how it does that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've tasted batch one. Maybe Darrell can get on that for me, but the main differences. But I really enjoy the subtleness that you were talking about, the toast that it adds without it being overtaking, but you're not losing anything off of this bourbon. I mean, those bourbon notes come straight through.
Jonathan, the barrel or I guess the amount of barrels used for batch 2 it is toasted, is it different than batch 1?
Yes, so in batch 2 on the toast, we also expanded to 10 barrels of whiskey. So we went 10 barrels of whiskey into 8 toasted barrels in the refill. So I mean, again, everything has grown, a bunch from last year. So when we first did toasted barrel rye, my intent was never to go a whole year before we got around to doing it again. But like next thing I knew, I looked down, I'm like, oh my God, it's been 9 months, So I've kind of got my life together a little bit more with our release schedule. So moving forward, I've got this much more dialed in. So the core, the silver label barrel strength will come out every quarter. So I saw, Troy was on here, Pop and Don't watch him over there in Louisiana. So our first batches of the year come out for the New Orleans Bourbon Fest, right? Got to give love to our neighboring state, Louisiana. And then our second batches come out, which we'll bottle the end of this month, will come out in early June, just before Father's Day. And then our third barrel strength of the year will come out just before Bourbon Heritage Month. And then the final barrel strength bourbon of the year will come out just before Thanksgiving. With the toasted barrel products, we do them twice a year. So toasted barrel bourbon is twice a year, toasted barrel rye is twice a year. They're alternating quarters. So first bottling this year, we did toasted barrel bourbon. This next one, we'll do toasted barrel rye. Then we'll do toasted barrel bourbon, then toasted barrel rye. So moving forward, you'll see a lot more consistency in the schedule. Jennifer's done a good job on staying on me to make sure I follow the schedule better and stay dialed in on my blending timetable.
Yeah, so I can give you a quick comparison. I'm about to take a sip of batch 1 toasted. So batch 2, so off of memory, batch 1, I remember it being more on that toasted vibe, like heavy char, like just a lot of barrel influence, which wasn't bad. I enjoy like the oakier and like more barrel influenced whiskeys versus some other people. Batch 2 isn't like that at all. It's darker, like it's definitely darker than just the regular batch 8 that we're tasting, but it doesn't taste that far different. Like it seems like it's more of like a light toasted version of that whiskey. It doesn't remind me of the first toasted that you guys did for bourbon, but I'm going to take a sip just to kind of concrete that in. But yeah, I remember this being just a little bit different on the palate than batch 2.
So Darrell, while you're tasting it, I think that's a good point of like me just understanding more as I work through the blends and understanding the whiskey that we own. And again, agreeing with you a little bit there of really trying to dial back in that toaster profile where it's just a nice accent note, but doesn't overpower the core whiskey. And I think with batch 2, I was able to accomplish that much more to my vision than even in batch 1. Not that I dislike batch 1, but I think batch 2, like you said, the toaster barrel is more refined. It kind of adds this nice, like oily mouthfeel to a nice structure. Like Hill said, it really kind of extends out the side of your palate, a little salvation on the side there and a kind of richness. and again, draws you in for more, but you still get that nice dark red fruit and caramel toffee. You know, there's still nice spice.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's me learning the whiskey more and how it interacts with the wood and building the blend even more suited to the toasted barrel than we did batch 1. So,
Yeah, both of these are pretty nice. For the toasted, are they the same batch? Like, you're not using the same whiskey from your barrel strength batch 8 and just toasting it, are you? Or is it just
no,
it
it's
10 different
they're totally
barrels?
different blends.
Okay.
Right, 10 different, yeah, totally different blend. And again, I actually blend it a little bit more spice driven, a little bit richer, trying to find the right blend that I think is going to lend itself even better to the toasted barrels and add on to that whiskey, where you're not just getting just toasted barrel.
Yeah.
I appreciate hearing that's one of your favorite whiskeys of the year so far this year.
Nice.
Like you said, for me, it's just a more refined, rounded is what I would, if I'm using words to describe it. It just seems more round and blended together in a way that you're getting a more complete experience from beginning to end. There's not anything that is spiky at all in regards to when you're going from front to back. There's nothing that just like pounds you. It's a continual experience from front to back. It spreads out. It's got that velvety mouthfeel. That's one thing that I'm noticing more and more as I drink these both tonight is the mouthfeel difference for me from 7 to 8 and from batch 1 and batch 2 of the toasted. That is very, very impressive. I've been talking to a lot of distillers lately about barrel entry proofs versus what they used to do and how much that can affect the overall mouthfeel and viscous flavors that are coming through it. So it's just one of my things that I like to nerd out about, but it's very interesting how many variables play into that.
So that's another really good point too. You talk about barrel entry proof, right? So again, because we're buying from so many different distilleries, we've got barrel entry proofs all over the place. So we actually own barrels at barrel strength or under 100 proof. We also have barrels at barrel strength over 130 proof, right? And everything in between. So again, when I'm tasting the blend and I'm like, you know what, I need to dial this back in, right, and soften it up, I can go to a lower proof barrel. And if I'm like, you know, I need a bigger back end, I want to add more richness, you know, really kind of make this pop more, I can go to higher proof or more spice or less spice. And again, I think that's one of the really cool things that really makes K.Luke special and stand out in the market is we have so many things to work with. I mean, it's just, that's another great point talking about barrel entry proof, because again, we're not locked into buying from just 1 or 2 distilleries. We're buying all over the place. So again, I have all those things in my wheelhouse to look at as I'm creating the blends, and I can adjust proof and I can adjust pretty much any sort of flavor profile. If you said, hey, we need more fruit or more this or more that, I can go back to my notes and say, okay, these barrels are rated to fall in that classification. Let's play around with blending some more of these in and taking out some heavier barrels or vice versa. And then one more thing to talk about, like whiskey side by side. If you go back now, if you have batch 8 in your glass still and smell it, like I get this really cool, like fig, like date, like sometimes I'll cook dates on my grenade. I'll stuff them with cheese, wrap prosciutto. It's kind of get like that baked date on grenade coming out in batch 8 now after having the toasted barrel.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I'd even go all the way to like a fig Newton with that cookie. I don't even know what the fig Newton cookie would be around it, but I get that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Before I forget.
Yeah, you really get I think you get the big part of the nose and you get the cookie on the back of your palate.
I got a quick question, Jonathan, on like you were mentioning proof a little bit ago. So obviously all your barrels, they're barrel proof at the time. When you're making your blends, are you proofing them down at that point with water to get your profile, or are you blending everything at barrel strength, figuring out you like it, then proofing it down from there?
So, everything we do is nitro filtered barrel strength. So we taste everything that way. But we will at some point throughout the blind tastings, we will start incorporating a couple drops of water. across the board and all the whiskeys we taste. Usually we'll go through, we'll taste all of them, we'll rate all of them, and then like I'll tell Jennifer, all right, I want to go through and add just a drop or two of water to all the samples we're tasting, whether it's my batches or running against the other bourbons in the market. And then again, we'll re-rate them in that same tasting now with water as well. Because, it does bring up a good point, because I know the reality is not everyone's going to sit and drink whiskey neat. We live here in the South. It's super hot during the summer. A lot of people like the whiskey over big cubes. So we try to taste it all different ways, knowing that people might add a little bit of water, obviously straight. We try to play around with the different things. Sometimes we'll kind of be down to our top few blends, and I might just outside and have a cigar and run with it that way too, right? Like just to see, really trying to understand, like, how does it change? Obviously, if you cook barbecue, right, you have acidic sauce, that's going to change the way the whiskey tastes. There's been times that something we'll have for dinner, we'll go sit down and do a tasting later on. I'm like, you know what, we can't do it tonight. Like I can already tell the whiskeys aren't drinking the way I expect them to. What we had for dinner has changed our palate too much, but we can't get a true kind of dialed in. We'll still go through the process, but kind of take it with a grain of salt for that particular tasting, knowing that it's kind of off profile because you adjusted or changed your taste palate, your taste buds and your palate too much. So there's so many variables out there, I think, that change how the whiskey tastes in the glass.
Yeah. Are you still putting out?
About it, right? You get together with a group of friends and you pour stuff wine, you bring out your favorite bottles, you go back and revisit things, you throw in things you've never had before. And for me, that's what whiskey's all about. It's that experience of sharing it with people and just having a good time with it. I never understand that having great bottles that aren't open. You got to open them at some point, share them with people.
Absolutely. That's what started this channel.
We don't have that problem.
Yeah, we don't have that problem.
I don't either, as you can tell from my background. We anytime there's a birthday party for kids in the neighborhood, everyone's like, can we stop by the house and maybe just have a taste of bourbon, And again, I don't care if it's any barrel I picked over the years or any batch of K.Luke. If people appreciate it, I have no problem sharing it because, again, I think that's what whiskey's made for. And it's, I think that's a special part about what makes, having great whiskey in your collection so much fun. We drink a lot of wine too, but I always tell people when you open up a $100 bottle of wine, you drink it in one night. You open up a $100 bottle of whiskey, and you can really stretch it to as many experiences as you want to, as long as you make the bottle last.
Absolutely.
I think that's something kind of keep in mind in a big way.
100%. Well, guys in chat, it's about 3 minutes till 8 or 9, Eastern time. I'm on Central time. These guys are on Eastern time. Any last questions from chat before we let this guy go for the night? But again, just for me, thank you so much for sitting down with us. And Katie said it better. Exactly. That's what whiskey is about. Can't wait for next time to share pours and stories with the guys. Yeah, we have Turkapalooza coming in Tennessee. We're going to go do some picks and then
weeks.
Yeah, it's coming up fast.
4 weeks.
So we're excited about that's kind of the, we talk about great whiskey, but in all ends, it's just a means to great memories, right? Creating those experiences and memories together. That's what it's all about. So
that's the truth. Dude, I enjoy it.
Well, guys, I hope to get to join you one day in person, taste some whiskey. And I can't say enough, though, for all of you guys in the channel, just really appreciating and telling the story of what Jennifer and I do, what K.Luke is all about, sharing our love of whiskey and our family with the world. Again, you can find us on the shelf, Mississippi, Louisiana, Country Lane Liquor in Wyoming, Tennessee, Kentucky. Right now, you can get the Batch 8, which is the double gold 95 point from San Francisco on shared pour. Well, a little bit more going to Stillbox in about a week. Everyone in the chat, if you want to keep up with what we've got going on, tastings, events, follow us on social media. You can go to our website, join our newsletter. But again, we really appreciate all the love and support. And, we will continue to blend every batch if it's our last batch of whiskey and make sure it's something special in your glass. So we certainly appreciate everyone that loves what we do. Absolutely.
And we'll have those links up in the description as well. We'll grab some of those. I know Jeff can grab those and put those in the description of the video. That way, if guys are catching this on the replay and we're in the chat tonight, they can go ahead and make sure to catch and follow you guys as well on Instagram and any other social media as well. So
K.Luke merchandise coming very soon. I'm working with a guy right now. Matter of fact, he just texted me while we're sitting here. We should have that out in the next month or two. It's kind of been on the back burner for us. Jennifer was like, don't sign me up for anything of me going out to fulfill orders. I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good decision. Jennifer is over compliance and financing and pretty much, I do all the tasting and talking, and she pretty much handles everything else in the business. So, but merchandise coming soon. You'll see it on the website before too long.
Awesome.
Seen this comment from Michael Bartner. It's like the auto pay that I do for my car. Can you put me on auto ship for K.Luke? I'm trying to get all the batches.
That's what I do with the Turks. Like the Turks know when it drops on Sealbach, they better have a bottle for Kelsey in there. So
that's funny. I need something like that for some sites. Like
well,
you just put what you want.
That,
and just
that is really our goal is, each time a batch comes out.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Each batch comes out that you're excited about it. And it.
No, for sure. Oh. Losing you a bit again.
I wondered if you were going to highlight that.
I haven't heard it once.
Yeah, thank goodness. He has.
How have you not heard it?
It's. I'm so used to it that I don't hear it anymore. Everybody else hears it.
The only thing he hears.
It's not in my house. It's outside the door in the hallway.
With all those 6 kids, if it's silent, that's when he knows something's wrong. So,
as you mentioned, kids, this one.
Hi, Navia.
Wanders in.
Kelsey says hi. Say hello. She whispered hi.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. But with we're hitting the 9:00 hour here, so it is time to say goodbye. But everybody in chat, thank you for joining us as well, and hopefully you got to enjoy some K.Luke with us. If you don't have any K.Luke, maybe this is a inspiration to get some as well. You could see how much we were enjoying going through all these blends tonight. It took us quite for a ride. And then, as we mentioned, you can keep your eye out on Sealbach and some other online retailers if you're in a state that K.Luke isn't sold in. Kelsey, Darrell, anything else to add before we turn this off?
No, just thank you to Jonathan, the time and the generosity of sending us all 3 samples. Man, that's big. We think we have actually made it and achieved something if we're getting media samples.
Hey, I appreciate you guys loving what we do and helping tell the story, and just most of all being excited to pour K.Luke in your personal glass to sit and drink at the end of the day. So that's what it's all about for us. For sure, man.
I've always been that one that gives the praise to someone that I think that's worth it, man. When I first had it, like I said, it deserved all the praise, and I've been buying them since. I just love the whole blending aspect and just how good these are. You can use my. All right.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Time to head over to Jason. Tell us we sent you, and we'll catch you on the next Whiskey Wednesday. Jonathan, we do like this outro video to support those who support us. So if you want to stick around and talk some more,
sure,
hang out backstage.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello